Almost every day I watch a government minister, sometimes the Prime Minister, yesterday Matthew Hancock, talking about the crisis, and quite often the questions are, why weren't we better prepared, Minister, etc. And my surmise is that Britain, and perhaps democratic countries generally, are not very good at reacting to sudden events. If we take an example of war, which I think in the 20th century has been the thing that has stretched Britain probably more than anything else to date, when were we really ready for full-scale conflict with Nazi Germany? And the answer, I would say, is probably not before the autumn of 1942, 3 years after the declaration of war. Okay, we managed okay on a defensive line. Dunkirk, the Battle of Britain. But when it came to any kind of taking on the Nazis on land, we had to wait for El Alamein, Montgomery's victory, before a British army with American equipment actually defeated, it has to be said, a much smaller German force. Even after that, we didn't do very well. We relied on the huge power of the Soviet Union and forces and supplies from the United States. So there were continuing disasters in the Far East. Yes, we were fighting the Japanese, but a sideshow for the Japanese in Burma. Most of their forces were fighting the Chinese. So, you know, in the Second World War, it took us a long time to get to a point where we were ready. Go to the First World War, I suspect the British Army under Haig was not really equipped to take on German forces until the end of 1917 into 1918. We were only pushing the German army back in October, November 1980. Perhaps we shouldn't mention the South African War, the Boer War, and other colonial ventures, where even then we did badly to start off with some of them. If you go back even further to, well, the Crimean War, we didn't do very well there. Go back even further to the Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars. How long did it take before a British army actually defeated a French army? The war started in 1793, and I think the Battle of Vimiero was 1807. So that's a long time for the British to develop an effective fighting force. You might say, yes, but what about Wellington's victories in the peninsula after 1808? Yes, but he never met Napoleon. John Moore met him and had to retreat to La Coruña, in order to avoid a disaster. When Wellington met Napoleon at Waterloo, Wellington was saved probably by three things. Napoleon was ill, one of his corps commanders with huge parts of the French army, Grouchy, gone adrift somewhere, and the Prussians arrived in the afternoon just in time. So where'd you go for British preparedness? Nowhere. You might say the Duke of Marlborough in Queen Anne's reign, but the wars that William III had started against the French were from about 1693, 1694-ish. What about Cromwell? But the English Civil War started in 1642. Cromwell's Ironsides were not really winning battles until about 1650, 1651, 8 or 9 years. So I don't think Britain has been very good at just launching itself into big things. It doesn't surprise me that after about, 8 months, we're not doing very well, perhaps with COVID. We're never prepared for anything on that scale, whether it's something financial, 2008 or so, whether it's health, whether it's military. We like to lead a quite pleasant life, and we don't want big armies and big navies and all this sort of stuff. We don't really want to spend a huge amount of money on that. Dictatorships can work differently, whether they're communist ones, Nazi ones, or whatever. They can work quite differently. But I don't think this is too surprising. I think it's amazing how far we've got. People may be fed up at the moment, but they should look back a little bit at the Second World War in particular, and perhaps even earlier. That's it. Thank you.